Assalamu alaikum students. I am Dr. Rukaya from the Department of Community Medicine and today we will be discussing about family planning. In the previous presentation, you have already studied about what is family planning, what are its benefits and what are the temporary methods used for family planning. So, in continuation with that presentation, we will be today studying about what are hormonal contraceptives, what are the terminal methods used for family planning, and the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. Hormonal contraceptives. How they are different from the temporary contraceptives is the presence of hormones in them. When they are properly used, they are the most effective spacing method. The oral contraceptives of combined type are 100% effective in preventing pregnancy. They provide the best means of ensuring spacing between one childbirth and another. In India, it has been estimated that 9.52 million women use the oral pill as the means of contraception. They contain the gonadal steroids, which may be synthetic estrogens or synthetic progesterogens or both. The hormonal contraceptives can be classified as oral pills or depot formulations. The oral pills can be combined pills, progesterone only pill, postcoital pill, once a month pill, and male pill. And the depot formulations may be as injectables, subcutaneous implants, or vaginal rings. And now we will be discussing them one by one. The first type of the oral pills are the combined pills. They are one of the major spacing methods of contraception. The original pill, which was started in 1960s, initially contained 100 to 200 micrograms of synthetic estrogen and 10 milligrams of synthetic progesterone. But to reduce the number of undesirable side effects, the dose of these synthetic estrogen and synthetic progesterone was reduced from time to time. And the current pill, which is in use, contains 30 to 35 micrograms of synthetic estrogen and zero point 0.5 to 1 milligram of synthetic progesterone. The pill is given orally for 21 consecutive days, beginning from the fifth day of the menstrual cycle and followed by a break of 7 days, during which period menstruation occurs. It is actually the withdrawal bleeding, which occurs by the withdrawal of exogenous hormones rather than the menstruation, and thus the loss of blood which occurs is about half that occurring in the woman having ovulatory cycle. If the bleeding does not occur, the woman is instructed to start the second cycle 1 week after the preceding one, and the woman menstruates during the second course of pill intake. The pill should be taken every day at a fixed time, preferably before going to bed at night. Mala N and Mala D are the examples of combined oral pills. They were started by the Department of Family Welfare in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and Mala D and Mala N both contain 28 pills, 21 of oral contraceptive pills and 7 pills which contain 60 milligrams of ferrous fumarate tablets. Mala D is provided to the consumer under social marketing for the price of rupees 3, while as Mala N is given free of cost at the government centers. And Mala N is also named as Asha. The second form of oral pills are the progesterone only pills. They are also referred as mini pill or micro pill. They contain only progestrogens, which may be in the form of norethistérone or levonorgestrel. They are given throughout the cycle in small doses. However, they didn't gain widespread use because of their poor cycle control and high failure rate. They can be used in older women in which the use of combined pill is contraindicated because of cardiovascular risks. This is the strip showing the progestrogen only pills which is given throughout the cycle in smaller doses. Third is the postcoital contraception. It is also known as morning after contraception and is recommended within 72 hours of an unprotected intercourse. Two methods are available. First is the IUD insertion, which involves the insertion of a copper device within 5 days of unprotected intercourse. Second is the hormonal method. In India, levonorgestrel 0.75 milligram tablet is approved for emergency contraception. For hormonal type of postcoital contraception, we can use one tablet of 0.75 milligrams within 72 hours of unprotected intercourse and the second tablet after 12 hours of first dose, or two oral contraceptive pills containing 50 micrograms of ethinyl estradiol within 72 hours after intercourse and the same dose after 12 hours, or four oral contraceptive pills containing 30 or 35 micrograms of ethinyl estradiol within 72 hours and 4 tablets after 12 hours, or mifepristone 10 milligrams once within 72 hours. Once a month pill. Once a month pill contains long acting estrogen in the form of cunestrol with combination of short acting progestrogen. But the results have been disappointing. The pregnancy rate is too high and bleeding tends to be irregular. The last form of oral pills are the male pills. The search began in 1950s and was concentrated on four lines of approach: either preventing spermatogenesis, interfering with sperm maturation and storage, preventing sperm transport, or affecting the constituents of the seminal fluid. However, the most part of the research was concentrated on interference with spermatogenesis. An ideal male contraceptive would decrease sperm count while leaving testosterone at normal levels. A male pill made of gossypol, a derivative of cottonseed oil, have been very much in the news. It is effective in producing azoospermia or severe oligospermia, but as many as 10% of men may be permanently azoospermic after taking it for 6 months. Mechanism of action of these oral combined pills is to prevent release of ovum, which is achieved by blocking the pituitary secretion of gonadotropins. Progestogen only pill also renders cervical mucus thick and scanty and inhibit sperm penetration. Progestrogens also inhibit tubal motility and delay the transport of sperm and ovum to the uterine cavity. How effective are these OCPs? They are almost 100% effective in preventing pregnancy when taken according to the prescribed regimen. However, women do not take the pills regularly, so the actual rate is lower and more in the developing countries. Come to the risks and benefits of oral contraceptives. During early 1960s, the oral contraceptives were introduced, and in 1970s they were found to have severe cardiovascular effects. The two studies from the Royal College of General Practitioners and Oxford University proved the same evidence. The women who had used oral contraceptives had increased chance of mortality and increased chance of development of myocardial infarction, cerebral thrombosis, and venous thrombosis as well. The prolonged use of oral contraceptives was also linked with increased chances of development of cervical cancer. They had metabolic effects as well, like increase in blood pressure, alteration in serum lipids, especially decrease in high density lipoproteins, blood clotting, and altered carbohydrate metabolism. Other adverse effects included development of hepatocellular adenoma and gallbladder disease. When used during postpartum period, the pills affected the quantity and constituents of breast milk, and some unwanted effects included breast tenderness and weight gain. However, they were found to be beneficial for the protection of six benign diseases like benign breast disease, ovarian cysts, iron deficiency anemia, pelvic inflammatory disease, and also ovarian cancer. Contraindications for the use of oral contraceptives can be classified as absolute or problems requiring medical surveillance. The absolute contraindications include cancer of the breast, liver disease, previous or present history of thromboembolism, cardiac abnormalities, congenital hyperlipidemia, underdiagnosed abnormal uterine bleeding. And the special problems requiring medical surveillance include age over 40 years, smoking and age over 35 years, mild hypertension, chronic renal disease, epilepsy, migraine, nursing mothers in the first 6 months, diabetes, gallbladder disease, and the history of infrequent bleeding. The pill should be used primarily for spacing pregnancies in younger women. Those over 35 years should go for in other forms of contraception. Beyond 40 years of age, the pill is not to be prescribed or continued because of the sharp rise in the risk of cardiovascular complications. Women taking oral contraceptives should be advised annual medical examinations. The examination should be prescribed because to identify those with contraindications and those with special problems that require medical intervention. The second form of the hormonal contraception are the depot formulations. The need for depot formulations are that they are effective, reversible, long acting, and require a single administration for several months. They may be classified as injectable, subdermal, or vaginal rings. The first form of depot formulations are the injectable contraceptives. They are of two types. First is the progesterone only injectable, and is the once a month combined injectable contraceptives. The progesterone only injectables are of three types. First is the depot medroxyprogesterone acetate, and it has been in use since 1960s. The standard dose is of intramuscular injection of 150 milligrams every 3 months. It exerts its contraceptive effect primarily by suppression of ovulation and also some indirect effect on the endometrium and direct action on the fallopian tubes. It has been found to be safe, effective, and acceptable. And once used in postpartum women, it does not affect lactation. Second is the norethistierone enantate, which has been in use since 1966. It is given as intramuscularly in a dose of 200 milligrams every 60 days. The mechanism of action is same as that of depot medroxyprogesterone acetate, but it has a slight higher pregnancy failure rate as compared to DMPA. Third is the DMPA subcute Provera 104. It is given as a subcutaneous injection of 104 milligrams every 3 months. It should be given in upper thigh or abdomen, and it is as effective as intramuscular injection in the form of DMPA. However, it should not be given intramuscularly. Both DMPA and norethistérone enantate should be initially given during the first 5 days of menstrual period. Picture shows both medroxyprogesterone injection and norethistérone enantate injection. The medroxyprogesterone injection is given under the name of Antra, free of cost at primary health centers and family welfare centers. Both of these injections, as I earlier said, are initially given during the first 5 days of the menstrual period. The timing is important to rule out the possibility of pregnancy. They are both given as deep intramuscular injections, and the injection site should never be massaged following injections. The side effects are weight gain, irregular menstrual bleeding, and prolonged infertility. The contraindications include abnormal uterine bleeding, cancers of the breast, all genital cancers, and a suspected malignancy as well. High BP, certain conditions of the heart, blood vessels, or liver, including history of stroke or heart attack. The second form of depot formulations are the combined injectable contraceptives. They contain both progesterone and as well as estrogen. They are given at monthly intervals plus minus 3 days. They act mainly by suppression of ovulation, or cervical mucus is also affected mainly by the progesterone, and there are some changes in endometrium as well that makes it unfavorable for implantation. In clinical trials, cyclophrem and mesigina have been found effective with 12-month failure rates of 0.2% and 0.4% for mesigina. The side effects are similar to that of the progesterone only injectables. The contraindications include confirmed or suspected pregnancy, past or present evidence of thromboembolic disorders, cerebrovascular or coronary artery disease, focal migraine, malignancy of the breast, diabetes, and also they are not useful for women after 6 months of postpartum period. The second form of depot formulations are the subdermal implants. They were developed by the Population Council New York, and they are known as Norplant. They consist of 6 silastic capsules containing 35 milligrams each of levonorgestrel. They are implanted beneath the skin of the forearm or upper arm. They provide effective contraception for over 5 years. The contraceptive effect is reversible on removal of these capsules. A large multicentric trial has reported a 3-year pregnancy rate of 0.7. The main disadvantages are irregularities of menstrual bleeding and surgical procedures necessary to insert or remove implants. The last form of depot formulations are the vaginal rings. These vaginal rings contain levonorgestrel and have been found effective. The hormone is slowly absorbed through the vaginal mucosa, permitting most of it to bypass the digestive system and liver, and thus allowing a potentially lower dose. The ring is worn in the vagina for 3 weeks of the cycle and is removed for the fourth. Now we will be discussing about the terminal methods of contraception or what is known as sterilization. It is a procedure for couples who desire to have no more children. Currently, in India, female sterilization accounts for 85% and male sterilization accounts for 10 to 15% of all sterilizations in India, in spite of the fact that male sterilization is simpler, safer, and cheaper than female sterilization. However, this sterilization offers many advantages over other contraceptive methods. Like it is a one time method and it does not require sustained motivation for the user. It is provided free of cost in the government institutions. Now, what are the guidelines for the terminal methods of sterilization? Sterilization services are provided free of charge in government institutions. However, there has been guidelines issued from time to time by the government of India covering various aspects of sterilization. These include the age of the husband should not be ordinarily be less than 25 years, nor should it be over 50 years. The age of the wife should not be less than 20 years or more than 45 years. The motivated couple must have two living children at the time of operation. If the couple has three or more living children, the lower limit of the age of the husband or wife may be relaxed at the discretion of the operating surgeon. And it is sufficient if the acceptor declares having obtained the consent of his or her spouse to undergo sterilization without outside pressure, inducement, or coercion, and that he or she knows that for all practical purposes the operation is irreversible and also that the spouse has not been sterilized earlier. Male sterilization or vasectomy. It is a simple procedure that can be performed even in primary health centers. When carried out under strict aseptic techniques, it should not have any risk of mortality. In vasectomy, it is customary to remove a part of piece of vas at least 1 centimeter after clamping. The ends are ligated and then folded back on themselves and sutured into position so that the cut ends face away from each other. This is done to reduce the risk of recanalization at a later date. During the immediate period, another method of contraception must be used. Once they are properly performed, vasectomies are almost 100% effective. The complications of vasectomy may be there. These include operative, which include pain, scrotal hematoma, and local infection. There may be presence of sperm granules. They are caused by the accumulation of sperm, and the most frequent symptoms are pain and swelling. They provide a medium through which reanastomosis can occur. They, however, eventually subside on their own. There may be spontaneous recanalization of vas, and its incidence is variously placed between 0 to 6%. There may be autoimmune response to sperms. Blocking of the vas causes reabsorption of spermatozoa and subsequent development of antibodies against sperms in the blood. Normally, 2% of men have circulating antibodies against their own sperms. However, in men who have had vasectomies, the figure can be as high as 54%. And There may be psychological effects like headache, fatigue, and emotional pressure as well. Female sterilization. Female sterilization can be done as a procedure of interval procedure, postpartum, or at the time of abortion. The first type of female sterilization is laparoscopic. It's a technique through which abdominal approach is done with a specialized instrument called laparoscope. The abdomen is inflated with gas and the instrument is introduced into the abdominal cavity to visualize the tubes. Once the tubes are accessible, the fallope rings or clips are applied to occlude the tubes. The operation should, however, be undertaken only in those centers where specialized obstetricians are available. Laparoscopy is, however, not advisable for postpartum patients for 6 weeks following delivery. However, it can be done as a concurrent procedure to medical termination of pregnancy. Hemoglobin should not be less than 8 hours. The cases are required to be followed up by health workers. The, the second form of s- laparoscopic female sterilization is the mini lap operation. It's a modification of abdominal tubectomy and it's a much simpler procedure which requires a smaller abdominal incision of only 2.5 to 3 centimeter and is done under local anesthesia. It is suitable procedure at even primary health center and in mass campaigns. It can be even done in postpartum women. Now, how are these contraceptive methods evaluated? Contraceptive efficacy is generally assessed by measuring the number of unplanned pregnancies that occur during a specified period of exposure and use of a contraceptive method. There are two methods to measure contraceptive efficacy. First is the Pearl Index. It is defined as the number of failures per 100 women years of exposure. The total accidental pregnancies which should be included are known to have conception, whatever its outcome is. And the second is the life table analysis, which calculates a failure rate for each month of use. A cumulative failure rate and then compare methods for any specific length of exposure. The last topic which we will be discussing today is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 lays down conditions under which a pregnancy can be terminated, which I will be discussing in the subsequent slide. The person or persons who can perform such terminations, which include a registered medical practitioner having experience in obstetrics and gynecology, if the pregnancy is not more than 12 weeks. However, when the pregnancy exceeds 12 weeks and is not more than 20 weeks, the opinion of two registered medical practitioners is necessary. Where these terminations can be performed, the Act stipulates that no such termination shall be made at any place other than the hospital established or maintained by government or approved by the government for this purpose. The abortion services thus provided in hospitals should be in strict confidence. Now discussing the conditions under which a pregnancy can be terminated under the MTP Act 1971. These include medical conditions where the continuation of the pregnancy might endanger the mother's life or cause grave injury to her physical or mental health. Eugenic conditions where there is substantial risk of the child being born with serious handicap, due to physical or mental abnormalities. Humanitarian causes where pregnancy is the result of rape, socio-economic causes where actual or reasonably foreseeable environments could lead to risk of injury to the health of the mother and failure of contraceptive devices. However, the written consent of the guardian is necessary before performing abortion in women under 18 years of age and in lunatics if they are older than 18 years. MTP Rules 1975. Rules and regulations framed initially were altered in October 1975 to eliminate time consuming procedures involved in medical termination of pregnancy and to make services more readily available. These changes have occurred in three administrative areas. First is approval by board. Under the new rules, the Chief Medical Officer of the district is empowered to certify that a doctor has the necessary training in obstetrics and gynecology to do abortions. The procedure of doctors applying for certification was removed. Second is the qualification required. The new rule allows for the registered medical practitioner to qualify through on the spot training if he has assisted a registered medical practitioner in 25 cases of medical termination of pregnancy in an approved institution, or he or she has 6 months of housemanship in obstetrics and gynecology, or he has a PG in obstetrics and gynecology, or he has a 3 years of practice in obs and gynecology before 1971 Act and 1 year in obstetrics and gynecology after 1971 Act. And the third change was place where abortions can be performed. Non-governmental institutions were also involved if they have a license from the chief medical officer. Now, what is the impact of liberalization of medical termination of pregnancy? Although abortion has been greatly liberalized, annual number of legal abortions are about 6.1 per thousand pregnancies, whereas the illegal abortions account for 13.5 per thousand pregnancies. An amendment to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act in 2013 include decentralization of power for approval of places for medical termination of pregnancy centers. The strategy of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act at the community level include spread awareness regarding safe medical termination of pregnancy ways in the community and the availability of the services thereof, enhance access to confidential counseling for safe medical termination of pregnancy, train ANMs, Anganwadi workers, and link workers for the same, and promote post abortion care through ANMs, Anganwadi workers, and link workers. Facility level strategy include to provide manual vacuum aspiration facility at all CHCs and at least 50% of PHCs for medical termination of pregnancy, provide comprehensive and high quality medical termination of pregnancy services at all first referral units, and encourage private and NGOs to establish medical termination of pregnancy services. Thank you.